And we'll start with an invocation by Reverend Bernie.
Father, we thank you so much for the land that we live in. We thank you for our government. We thank you for those that faithfully serve us. And we thank you for those that have fought for our freedom. And this evening, we thank you for this chance to learn more about those who care enough to lead. Pray that you give us wisdom, that you give them wisdom. Let us hear clearly what they have to say. Let tonight's conversation be beneficial and not controversial and not adversarial. But let tonight be an opportunity for us to all learn about one another so we can be the best we can be and continue to grow in appreciation and respect for one another. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Would you all please rise and we'll have the salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I'd like to welcome all of you here this evening. We hope it will be an opportunity for you all to learn more about the candidates. And I will give a description of our organization so that it's clear. And I don't like to read to you, but I think it's a lot better if I do that so that I don't leave something out. With the departure of the League of Women Voters Forums, Gloucester Citizens for Accountable Government coalesced in 2015 as a group of private Gloucester citizens concerned about our county. We saw the need for an independent and unbiased venue where citizens could determine the positions of county candidates in competitive political races on issues of importance to them. We concluded that this need would best be met by a public meeting where citizens could directly ask their questions to the candidates without any filtering by various interest groups and receive direct responses from the candidates. We determined to anonymously facilitate such a meeting. The result of our efforts was a successful town hall meeting at the Colonial Courthouse in 2015. At that time, the intention was that this be a one-time activity to fill the gap until another neutral group assumed the responsibility. However, it has become apparent that there is a necessity to maintain such an open and unbiased forum on a continuing basis. For this reason, the concerned citizens has decided to conduct another forum for the 2017 elections and to consider future open and unbiased events for biennial elections in the Gloucester community. The candidates in this year's forum are John Meyer and Kevin Smith for at-large supervisors, Phil Bazzani and Kevin Farmer for York District Supervisor, and Damian Kelly and Brenda Mack for School Board. At this point, I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Mrs. Trudy Feegum, and I'll read again her background. Our moderator this evening is Trudy Feegum. Trudy and her husband Tom, who is with us in the audience, have lived in Middlesex County for 17 years. Trudy has served Middlesex County as the citizen representative to the Middle Peninsula Planning District for the last 3 years. She is chairman of the board of the National 4 Freshman Music Foundation. Prior to retiring to Middlesex, and I'm told they arrived by sailboat, Trudy and her husband owned and operated Feegum Funeral Home in Pierre, South Dakota. Trudy retired as executive director of the South Dakota Dental Association after 20 years. She has served as president of the local Chamber of Commerce, president of the Regional Arts Council, and as national president of the Constituent Dental Executives. Trudy has a long history of community service. We're glad she's with us tonight, and she does floss. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, I think I'm going to take this with me. Okay, I'm hoping you can all hear me. I want to thank all of you for being here. We may not have a huge audience, but I'll tell you what, we have quality. Many times it isn't all about quantity. I want to thank Dave King and the concerned citizens for inviting me to be your moderator. And what I'm going to do at this point is go over the forum rules. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce himself or herself and tell why they believe they should be elected. As moderator, I will ask one question of the group of Board of Supervisors candidates and one question of the 2 school board candidates. That's going to kind of get us going. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. If any candidate mentions another candidate by name or affiliation during their answer, the mentioned candidate will have 30 seconds in which to respond or rebut. As moderator, I will then open this forum for questions from the floor by Gloucester citizens only. And you'll see this microphone here in the center. When you're ready to ask your questions, you need to get up and form a queue, and we'll take you in order. Each citizen must state their name, address, and magisterial district. You'll have 30 seconds to ask your question. And remember what you all learned in English class when you were in school. Questions start with who, what, when, where, how. Those are the way you ask questions. I know you all have something to say, but we don't have enough time to listen to all of that. You will be timed when you ask your questions. So if you go over it, as your moderator, I'm going to have to stop you. And I want you to be able to get your questions out. Questions are to be addressed to all candidates in a group, that is to say, Board of Supervisors or the school board, instead of individual candidates. Each candidate in the group will have 1 minute in which to answer. And candidates will be going in a rotating order to respond. So each candidate will have a turn at being first. No follow-up questions by citizens will be allowed until all citizens who have questions and want to ask them have had their chance to ask one question. And remember, each candidate will be given 1 minute in which to answer. If any candidate mentions another candidate by name, this is something we've already said, but if they mention another candidate by name or affiliation during their answer, the mentioned candidate will have 30 seconds to respond or rebut. Because of the limited time available and the desire to accommodate as many citizens as possible, as your moderator, I will disallow a question which has been previously asked and answered. I may allow you, because you are the citizens and you're really what's important to be here asking questions, I may suggest that you ask an alternative question right away, or I may give you an opportunity to ask your alternative question later in the forum. And that's not necessarily waiting until all other citizens have asked their questions, but if it's something that kind of fits in with the topic, then I may call on you. At 8:45, I will close the floor to questions and ask each candidate to make a closing statement. At 9 o'clock, the forum will officially conclude. And just so you know, it's anticipated that the candidates will be around for a short while afterward, so that you can talk with them one-on-one if that's what you choose to do. Now, obviously, the most important result coming out of this candidate forum is that every single one of you will vote November 7th. Now, I want to show you, down here on the front row, we have our timers, and I want, Ken, if you will show, you've got a green arrow, means go. That means your time has started to speak. And at 30 seconds, that means 30 seconds remaining, he's going to hold up a warning, yellow light. And when you have reached the minute, there's going to be a red stop. And I would ask you you to please hold those up high so that the audience can see as well as the candidates, please. Okay? All right, with that being said, we are going to get started. And first off, I get to ask a question of the supervisor candidates. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Boy, I'm glad. See, these guys are going to keep me on target. All right, I will give each of you an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us why you believe you should be elected. 3 minutes. Mr. Meyer, your time has now started.
Want to check? Okay, I know how to operate the mic. I'm John Meyer, and I spent most of my life in the military. My dad was in the military, I was in the military. We traveled all around the United States, we traveled through Europe, and in 2005, my wife and I settled for the first and last time, and when we settled, we chose Gloucester County to live in. And we've truly enjoyed the county, we've truly enjoyed the people in it, and I can say I've never seen any place where the spirit of volunteerism is so strong and the volunteers are so good at what they do. Well, in 2013, we were at the tail ends of the economic doldrums. The Great Recession was still in full force, and the county had been stagnant. For the previous 4 years, we've been averaging 0.5% wage growth in the county. In the meantime, despite people's wages not going up, the cost of county government had gone up 14%. And the county's getting a little bit tired of that, and so they asked for a change. And the change they got, and they voted in Mr. Bazzani, Mr. Weinbarger, and myself. And they asked us to do 2 things. One is hold the line on spending, and the second is see if you can get this economy kick-started. Right, so we took the initiative. This board is aggressive. It gives things for the staff to do rather than waiting for the staff to come back and suggest things. And we drove the county staff in the direction that we felt the citizens wanted. The management team, senior management team, was replaced. We have a new county administrator, we have a new county finance officer, and they are from the commercial side of the world and understand the way that we think. Okay, so I think the results are that we did what we promised. We held the line on taxes, we streamlined the government, and we spurred economic development. Over the last 4 years, business tax revenues have gone up 15%. The average wage in the county has gone up 10%. 8.5% of that was in the last 2 years. But we still have a lot ahead to do. So I'm asking you to please let me and our board finish what we started and return us to leading this county in November. Thank you.
Mr. Bazzini, your time has started now.
Thank you. Welcome everyone here. You know, it is a privilege and an honor to be your supervisor for the York District. You are here tonight to hire someone. You're going to interview us. Any executive who hires anyone has to find the person with the right qualifications, the right experience. And so I want to briefly go over my qualifications and experience because you are going to interview me, you are going to answer, asking questions of me, and I will answer them. I'm a graduate of the College of William & Mary. I have an MBA from Old Dominion University in finance. I was a 34-year veteran, retired executive from Newport News Shipbuilding. I was responsible and accountable for the cost reporting, profit and loss, and reporting to the Securities and Exchange Commission for earnings. That was my responsibility solely. So with that experience, I brought 4 years ago my experience to bear to help the citizens of Gloucester County. So what have we done? What have I had a major role in Gloucester County to move our county forward, as Mr. Meyer just indicated? We've kept our taxes low. We've kept our taxes low. We've maintained county services. In fact, the services you see today are cheaper today to run than they were 4 years ago. That's an accomplishment. We have a good relationship with our schools, a good one. A good relationship with our schools, our department heads, and the citizens of this county. And you can go around, I've been going door to door, and you can hear it. We've done zero-based budgets, which has never been done in this county before, which is really a bottoms-up budget, which you do at home anyway. You all do it in some way or form. We've increased compensation for all school employees and all county employees. I'm proud of that. And this fall, it's going to be our number one priority to compensate, again, our employees. And you probably heard what I've been doing with respect to the Coleman Bridge. Finally, folks, we have the Navy coming to the Armed Services Committee and explain why they shouldn't pay for operations and maintenance. And if they do that, I can see a 35 to 40 cent decrease in the tolls. The tolls won't go away. We've got them for another 15 years, but they will be at least something cheaper for us. It's an unfair tax, and I've always called it that. So you've heard my qualifications and my experience. They're results-oriented. That's what I'm all about, results-oriented experience. I want to continue those results, again, to move this county forward. And so I'm asking you to come vote. I'm asking you to come hire me, again, to give me the chance to move this county in the direction that we want it to go, and the citizens want it to go. That's why we were hired 4 years ago. And I agree with John, we did in fact move our county forward in a positive direction. So thank you for coming. Please come out to vote and support me and my efforts to help you as a county citizen, and I want to continue to make Gloucester the land of life worth living. Thank you.
Mr. Farmer, your time begins now.
Hello, my name is Kevin Farmer. I moved to this county after nearly 30 years serving in the United States Navy, and I too, like Mr. Meyer, moved all around the country with my family. When I retired out of Fort Meade, Maryland, my family decided we wanted to go and find a place to retire. We were very familiar with Gloucester County due to all the years I spent in the Hampton Roads area. And so this was the first place in my entire life that I ever picked to live. And we came here, and we've hit the road running. I mean, it's the first time we've ever been able to really get involved with the community. We joined a church. We're very active in that church. I'm the committee chair of the Cub Scouts in Bena, and it's a job I really enjoy, and it just brings so much enrichment. And I'm also on the executive board of the Disabled American Veterans here in Gloucester County, Chapter 58. And that is one of my big passions after 30 years in the military, serving in combat in Iraq. And it is a real jewel to this county, that the services that organization brings here. Since I've lived here, I have come concerned with some of the transparency of the current board. And in my dealings with them, I've had some rough dealings with them. And talking to my neighbors, I too have walked the York District. I have knocked on hundreds and hundreds of doors and had some very good conversations with people. And I do not believe that you do have a good relationship with the school board. And I think we can work on that. I think we need to work on that, because after talking to lots of people in this county, or in the York District specifically, because that's where I walked, a lot of people believe that they do want to put a bigger investment into the future of their kids and the school district in this county, because that is the future of our county. So I would like to say thank you for inviting me here and having this forum, because these are the kinds of things that we need to have, and this is where the people get to talk and meet the candidates and talk about the issues. And that's what this country is based on. And I would also invite you to vote come November 7th, because we do not have a democracy if you do not vote. Thank you.
And now for our school board candidates, Damian Kelly.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here tonight with all of you. I want to thank each and every one of you for being in attendance, and also want to thank David J. King for organizing the event, and the Citizens for Accountable Government as well. My name is Damian Kelly, like I stated. I'm 18 years of age, and I'm running for the Gloucester County School Board at-large seat. I'm a recent graduate of Gloucester High School, just graduated this past June, so I'm the class of 2017, and I'm currently a student at Thomas Nelson Community College, where I'm studying social science, specialized in education. I am using, when I get my degree, to become my social science degree, plan on transferring over to CNU to major in history, and then my hopes are to become a high school principal here back in Gloucester County. I have 3 siblings that attend Gloucester County Public Schools, 1 attending Abington, 1 attending Page, and 1 attending Peasley Middle School. And then my grandmother is also a substitute teacher for here at Gloucester County Public Schools. I've always been very involved with our school district and our community here in Gloucester County. I just finished an internship this past spring with the Gloucester High School Athletic Director, Miss Christy Hunter. I coach spring baseball at Gloucester Youth Baseball, so I'm very engaged with the youth and the kids in this community, and I've held leadership council in schools and so forth. The reason I am running for the Gloucester County School Board is because I was approached by concerned students, concerned parents, staff of our school district, and concerned citizens mainly about our school district. So that's when I decided to run for the school board. With me being a recent graduate of the school system, I understand firsthand the challenges we are facing in our school district, impacting our faculty and students. I have walked in the same hallways that these students are walking in through. I've sat in the same hallways that these students are sitting in, so I understand firsthand what these students are facing. And I've enjoyed going out and meeting people throughout my campaign. I've met congressmen, I've met delegates, but the most importantly is meeting the students and the teachers that make up this wonderful county. And I look forward to continuing to meet them over the next 14 days that we have left here in the election. So I look forward to this informative tonight.
And Ms. Mack, please.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here to be able to give you some information about myself. I am running for the school board at large position. My father was born here, so just to give you a little background, I'm originally a Carter, and I've been coming here since I was 3 years old. So I've always felt that Virginia was my home. One of the things that interests me so much in doing this is because I have so many family members that were teachers. My Aunt Julia was a principal at a Hampton Elementary School. My Uncle Stanley taught at the Norfolk Institute of Technology. My mother was a teacher, my aunt was a teacher, and I was a teacher, so we have a lot of teachers. One of the things, though, that I think is very important is that I moved here in 2014 from Michigan. I lived in Michigan where I worked as a teacher and I trained at Blue Cross Blue Shield. I did my undergrad work at University of Cleary College and received my bachelor's degree in administration, in business administration. I graduated cum laude. I went to Central Michigan University to work on my master's, which is in higher education. In Michigan, I was also on a school board for 10 years. It was Detroit Enterprise Academy. 7 of those years, I was a director. The last 3 years, I was school board president. I think what I bring to this is the experience of being on a school board, the working knowledge of a school board, how a school board gets together, makes those decisions. Also, what the school board does to assist the schools, the teachers, and our students. I think the bottom line for us is that we need to make sure that our children are receiving the best education that we can provide for them. I think I'm also a member of the Ruritan Club. I'm also my church secretary. So I'm coming here and kind of hitting the floorboard running. I did lose my husband in 2015. So during that time, I was pretty much homebound. But I think once he passed and allowed me my time to grieve, talking with my granddaughter who goes to Abingdon, and she sees firsthand some of the things that she doesn't like. She was very upset because she lost a teacher that she wanted to have. She was very excited this year, though, because she got the teacher she wanted. So I think some of the things we need to look at for the school board is that we need to... Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. I didn't mention the fact or recognize that Mr. Smith is not with us tonight. I was not informed of any reason, so obviously it was his choice not to be here. So with that, I want to start with a question. I will ask the supervisors, and the question is simply, Please explain baseline or zero-based budgeting. And we will start with Mr. Mazzini.
Thank you. 1 minute, right? Zero-based budgeting is what you do at home. You start from a piece of scratch paper, you add your mortgage up, you add your food expenses, you add your utilities. Let's say you make $1,000 of income a month. And so you do all those enumerations from the bottom up, and you find that you're at $1,100. So you're $100 over your spending. So what do? You cut things out. Things can we do without? Sometimes you may come under. So sometimes you may say $200 is left. We can just apply that to savings or something else. So it's, again, starting from zero, working your way up. And it's the way we found the ability to not raise taxes this year. We were able to find fat in our budget through the good work that we with county administrator and board of supervisors. So that's what a zero-based budget is. It is something that we want to continue to do moving forward. It helps you, the taxpayer.
Mr. Farmer, please.
Zero-based budgeting is a good thing, and I agree with zero-based budgeting. I wish the federal government would do zero-based budgeting. And if I were elected, that would continue.
And Mr. Meyer? Your time starts now.
If it's all right with the moderator, I'll go ahead and answer for Mr. Smith.
He's sitting right there.
Yeah. Zero-based budgeting, quite simply, is everything that goes in you start with $0, and everything that goes in the budget has to be justified and built up. You don't enter each year with an assumed expense or an assumed revenue. Everything has to be accounted for and justified.
Thank you. Now I have a question for the two school board candidates. Identify one issue you perceive as problematic with the school system and explain how you would propose to address and resolve the problem. And I would like Ms. Mack to go first, please.
I think one of the problematics that we're dealing with right now is our teachers' salaries. I think it's something that we can work with the Board of Supervisors to make sure that we maintain our teachers that we have, to be able to allow them a budget that they can work with. So in that regard, we need to make sure that we retain our teachers, that we're able to get new teachers in. Also, that we make sure that they have what they need to deal with on an everyday basis for our school children.
Mr. Kelly. Identify one issue you perceive as problematic with the school system and explain how you would propose to address and resolve the problem.
I can agree with Ms. Mack on some parts of that. We do have a hard problem of keeping and retaining high-quality teachers in our school district. And I've talked to several that have left our school district, and believe it or not, pay is not the #1 reason why our teachers are leaving. We've had a lack of support of administration seems to be a really big deal of why these teachers are leaving. So we need to make sure that if I'm elected, that they have the support that they need from administration, whether that be from the school board, whether that be from the principals in every school or the assistant principals. So absolutely, we do need to pay our teachers competitively, but we also need to make sure that they have a strong administration that backs them.
Thank you. And now, citizens, it's your turn. So please stand up and ask your questions. Get in line and go for it.
Michael Hendrick, Ware District, 5774 Cockley Lane. Please explain the role of the BOS, Board of Supervisors, in a county reassessment.
Mr. Farmer, you will go first, please. Your time starts now.
Well, I believe that the Board of Supervisors oversees the regulations within the county, and therefore, and the actual administration of the assessment office is done by the county administrator.
We have generally nothing to do with the assessments. That's an independent process by county staff and our county assessor. We set the tax rate.
We set the tax rate, and through pressure on the county administrator, we sometimes get a new assessor if the assessments aren't going very well. But the assessor has to be independent and develop these assessments independent of us.
Thank you, candidates. Do we have more questions from the audience, please? I urge you to stand up and get ready to ask your questions so that we can move quickly.
Hi, Pat Dunnington, Ware District, 7215 Clements Avenue in Gloucester Courthouse. I would like each of the candidates, both school board and supervisors, this question. As a candidate seeking a 4-year term as either a supervisor or a member of the school board, please describe your vision for the future of Gloucester County in the area of responsibility for the office you are seeking, and what motivated you to run for office?
Mr. Meyer, will you start, please?
The overarching vision I had when I started was to take a Gloucester High School graduate and make sure that he or she graduate with the skills necessary to go to college and get a good job and become a good citizen afterwards. And because the opportunities exist, return to Gloucester County and raise their family and send their kids to Gloucester High School to repeat that pattern. That's my overall vision.
Again, my vision would be to grow this county in a way that we can bring, and I said it last time we had a debate, to bring light industry into the county. For me, when I first ran, I've said time and time again that I came down a learning curve. I did not need on-the-job training. I came working on day one knowing exactly what to do with the budget, knowing exactly what to do with ordinances, because I am a certified professional contracts manager's national certification. I know how to write ordinances, I know how to write clauses, I know how to write everything that spells out the agreements between a buyer and a seller, or in this case, the citizens and the county. So my vision and my motivation was to move our county forward, to simplify ordinances that helped our citizens and help businesses come here and grow.
My vision as the Board of Supervisors is to foster development and to create an environment that we all want to live, play, and work in.
My vision for the Gloucester County Public School Board is I want to see us, the school board, bring back many of the vocational classes that we have lost over the years, so also commonly known as career and technical education. So if elected, I will fight to bring back the ones that we have lost. My vision is to bring back those because I know a lot of kids depend on those. I would like to see, I would like to see that. I would like to see us continue to retain accreditation from the Virginia Department of Education and make sure that every kid is exceeding above the limits that they're expected. And what influenced me to run is teachers and then students and concerned citizens wanting me to run, and then also talking to other 18-year-old elected officials from across the nation, school board members, city council, mayors that have been 18. Those also really inspired me and let me know that 18-year-olds can step up and play a big part in their community.
I think one of the things I look at is that we definitely want to make sure that we foster a good working relationship with the BOS. We also want to make sure that we can retain and get in more career technology classes. Not all of our students are geared for college. So we want to make sure, though, that when they leave the high school, that they have a career, something that they can build upon. So we want to make sure that we bring those jobs in here so that they will be able to work with the high school.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Rosalind Tharp, 6184 Somerville. Why is the Gloucester County High School graduation rate lower than the state average, and why is the dropout rate higher?
That's for the school board candidates. Mr. Kelly, please.
Well, thank you for asking that question. I appreciate you for coming out here tonight as well. I was kind of curious of why that was, and I contacted my local school board representative, and I found out that The reason why we see the percentage so off is because, for example, we take a look at Newport News Public Schools, they have 8 or 9 high schools, and they have triple the amount of students that we have. We have one high school here in Gloucester County, and only 14 students had dropped out of that graduating class, and the graduating classes are only usually around 500 some students. So it throws the percentage off, and that's why.
Well, I'm afraid my comment was already made. It is true. We only have one high school. So when you're trying to do percentages and you're trying to do one against another county that has 8 to 9 schools, your percentage is definitely going to be kind of skewed. But we do want to make sure that we find out why and what happened and why those 14 students did drop out.
Thank you. Thank you.
You. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kathy Chaplin, 8477 Little England Road, York District. My question is, what is your plan for increasing and promoting economic development in Gloucester County?
And that's for all of them or for the supervisors?
For the supervisors.
Thank you. Mr. Pizzani, you'll go first, please.
What we want to do, what we want to do to stimulate growth is do the things we've been doing, the successes we've achieved with simplifying business ordinances that allow businesses to not strangle them to death, not strangle them and burden them with environmental regulations that supersede what state requirements use. Ordinances that don't require landscaping requirements that supersede what the state requires. When we lost a business about 3 years ago, we lost a $30 million business that hired electrical engineers and mechanical engineers. We lost them to York County because we choked that business to death with ordinances. And that was the primary stimulus for us to simplify the highway development overlay, which is why you're seeing the 17 new businesses growing on Route 17. 17 new businesses, that's tax revenue coming into Gloucester County through sales taxes, not coming out of your pocket, not coming out of your pocketbook.
Mr. Farmer.
I believe a lot of what he says. I also believe that we need to help the small businesses that are currently here in the county and get them to thrive. There's a lot of businesses, for example, we have a campground in this county that brings in a lot of money outside the county. I meet a lot of these people when I'm having a sandwich at Sub and Grub or I'm in line at Food Line. And most of them come from Virginia Beach, Richmond, DC area. And they say the biggest complaint they have about that campground is when they came in, there were no signs to get there because we have a pretty onerous sign regulation. And 2, the quality of low ground road scares the heck of them. And I've met a few people say they were never coming back because of that road. So I think this county needs to push VDOT to get some of our roads fixed so that we can get this economic development going in our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Gee, I was looking at you and Mr. Smith and I...
You were looking at the empty chair.
Yeah, it had to be the empty chair. I'm sorry.
Mr. Larson's already started me twice. I think the key is a reduced regulatory environment. What you need to be is an easier and lower cost place to get a business started than your neighboring counties. So are you easier than the competition? Not in an absolute sense. So we want to encourage businesses to come, make it easy for them to get started. And now that we've got businesses expanding in the county, which we do, we want to focus on bringing a business that exports either goods or services to other counties. So a light industry or an accounting firm or an insurance company that sells the stuff somewhere else, so those dollars come back into Gloucester. And those dollars that come back into Gloucester are new dollars, and then the multiplier effect affects those. It's about 5.5. Every new dollar is worth $5.50 of economic activity. So let's export and import dollars.
Thank you.
Sir, you've already been up here to ask a question. Does someone else have a question?
My name is Larry Cohen, York District, 6423 T.C. Walker Road, Gloucester. This is for the Board of Supervisors. Please comment upon whether you believe a person who has filed for bankruptcy 7 times in 16 years and been rejected by the bankruptcy court for protection due to failure to follow the conditions of the court and who has never disclosed this fact when running for and serving on our school board, is ethically and professionally qualified.
Your time is up. Mr. Meyer.
I would hesitate to hire somebody on that record, but this is a decision for the voters to make. And if you have a history of financial mismanagement and you can explain why, and you have, now, many of us have had hospital expenses, have had businesses go under, so to me it's understandable where you may have financial difficulties at time to time. But I think you also have to be able to explain those, and the first step to explaining it is to show up.
So, if I had someone who misreported or missed a number in our cost reports, or missed a number that went to the Securities Exchange Commission, and misrepresented those numbers in certain ways, and then decided, well, you know, it's not my fault, I just didn't know what I was doing, that person would not be working for me very long. So, you have to be responsible. There may be times, some people do come into hard times, and they may have to bankrupt themselves, if possible, one time. But 7 times, to me, is a little concerning. I would be concerned as a citizen. I would be concerned that this person has the capability to manage our tax money. That's what's scary for me, is can this individual manage your taxes? If he doesn't, you're going to see some really strange things happen with our tax money in this county.
Well, I believe that our founding fathers gave us the perfect opportunity. This is a job interview, and it would be up to the voters, each and every one, as they enter that voting booth, to make that decision. And that's how this system works. That's how it was set up by our founding fathers, and I think it's worked very good for over 200 years.
Next question, please.
My name is Neil Creedy. I live in New York District. I'm a U.S. Coast Guard veteran. My address is P.O. Box 557 in Hayes, Virginia. I am a victim of crime, identity theft, and other financial fraud. I have since discovered I have no representation, support, or backing as a victim of crime, and I have reported taxation without representation to Mr. Bazzani, Mr. Meyer, and the entire Board of Supervisors.
And your question, please,
My
sir.
question is, when will I get a response, or when will I get some support?
Mr. Bazzani, would you go first, please?
I know Mr. Creedy. John and I have had several meetings with him. The issues, and I sympathize with you. I really do. The issues you had occurred in a venue that's outside our county, so we found it difficult to find a way to help you when we suggested maybe finding outside counsel. So it is a tough question. I can't really specifically come up with a response that will help you. I don't think the county can help you in this venue. So I know you're not going to like that answer, but it's true. There's nothing our county can do to help you, because the issue that you had when we discussed this together was occurred in a county that was outside this one. If it occurred in Gloucester County, we might have been able to do something, but it did not. So that's my answer to that.
Mr. Farmer, would you respond, please?
I think your question was geared more towards people currently sitting on the board, but I would say that any constituent, if I were elected, would be an open door policy to talk and discuss and help in any way I could.
Yes, Philip and I did meet with Mr. Creedy on several occasions. And again, we sympathize with the circumstances he finds himself in. He does not feel he got justice through the justice system. But the key is that what he perceives as a failure of the judicial system. Here in Gloucester County, the judicial system is independent of us. You don't want the Board of Supervisors to be able to exercise control over the prosecutorial aspects of the county. In this case, we have even less of a say, because the judiciary that's responsible for the issues that Mr. Creedy has is in Hanover County. So there's not much we can do, but thank you for giving us the chance to try.
Next question. Next questionnaire. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Don Mitchell, York District, 6072 Creekside Lane. Should misleading the public with a deliberately false statement during a public forum disqualify an individual from public office? Why or why not?
Mr. Farmer, would you begin, please?
I would refer back to the exact same question we asked about, can someone with a bankruptcy be allowed to run for office? Any perceived comments or whatever is part of the job process with the voters of the districts and counties that the candidates are running in, and it would be up to those voters in the voting booth to make that decision.
Mr. Farmer's correct. It is the voter's decision to disqualify, not the candidates or the opposing candidates, certainly. I think that you do have to have the public trust. You have to have credibility with the public, and the only way you do that is by consistently being accurate and truthful in your statements.
My parents were Italian immigrants. And the one thing my father always told me was, Philip, and my brother Robert sitting out there, Philip, Robert, you can always remember the truth. You can't remember lies. So, you know, it's hard as a politician. I've seen politicians at the federal level and local level. You know, sometimes they'll say things and then they change their mind and say something else because they just didn't remember what the facts were. You have to be able to recount the facts. And if those facts are truthful, you'll always remember the facts. So being truthful and being honest with who you're dealing with, I like to deal honestly with the citizens of this county. Transparent with the county. I didn't understand the comment about transparency. I'd like to have my opponent name one issue where we were not transparent with the citizens. That gives you an opening to respond. But so that is what I feel. You should have some kind of trust with your representative.
Yeah, you didn't understand the part about transparency. I can say when I first moved to this county and I met Teresa, and Teresa introduced me to you, and I asked you some questions, and they were very untruthful. And when I called you on that, you laughed and said, "What are you going to do about it?" And that was the beginning of that issue that started to get me down the road of maybe I got to stop complaining about Board of Supervisors and try to do something about it. I've served this country for 30 years. I had a lot of people come to me and say, "You should run," and I decided to run. May I respond?
Yes, certainly.
Sir, I remember that encounter, and that was not what I said. Thank you.
Okay. Another question, please?
Breck Ingalls. I'm in the York District, P.O. Box 708, Gloucester, Virginia. I would like the candidates to address what they think are the important issues facing the county other than the ones we've already heard about, other than economic development and other than budgetary concerns. Thank you.
And is this for all candidates?
Board of Supervisors.
Board of Supervisors, all right. Let's see, I have Mr. Meyer going first.
Well, the one issue that's really critical and has not gotten the coverage, at least in the county, that it needs is the emerging opioid and fentanyl crisis. We're losing young people across the state. I believe 700 died from overdoses in the last year in Virginia. And very often we're unaware of it. It's not well publicized. It's hard to discover that it happens. And it's hard to figure out what the good approach to solving that is. I think one of the things we need to try to do is to get a drug court established, probably in concert with other Middle Peninsula communities, which helps give people who've had run-ins with the law on this a second opportunity to go straight, and seems to be working in other localities.
One of the biggest things that we have not talked about as a board, well, we have talked about it as a board, but what I'd like to see that this county look into is broadband in Gloucester County. We have a lot of students who live here in Gloucester County, and some residents, especially in the northern end of the county, don't have broadband. If they do have broadband, it's very, very expensive. And so we just recently were able to get a $300,000 grant from, I think it's the state, the federal government, to expand broadband in the northern end of the county. I think that was a great accomplishment on our part. I'd like to see broadband expanded throughout the county, but it's got to be done in a way that doesn't hurt us fiscally. You can't just give broadband and not have enough people sign up for it. It's like our utilities department. Well, you have a lot of people who have sewer running in front of their homes, but they're not required to hook up to it. It's difficult, but it's got to be done with a zero-sum gain for the county.
I was going to say broadband. So as I've walked around the county and knocked on doors and had conversations with people, broadband has come up. That is one of the things we haven't talked about. And also some of the quality of water issues came up a lot. And those are things that we probably need to look into.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Wayne Cruz, Gloucester Plain Districts, 3146 Providence Road. This is for a school board. Our costs for our schools have been going up. Our student numbers have been going down. What are y'all going to do to try to get these under control?
Ms. Mack?
Could you state the first part of your question again?
That our costs with the school boards have been going up and the number of students are going down. What are we going to do for getting our costs more in line for our students?
I think one of the problems that we're having right now that I think would help that, and I know it's probably not a good one, but I really think we need to look at redistricting. We know that Botetourt has a very large population, and then we have another school that has a small population. I think if we can get that handled and get an even distribution across the board, I truly believe that that will help with the money problem.
The reason why we've seen the increase of over the years of the increase of money that the school board has been receiving, I wanted an exact answer on that one too in the last several months, and I was directed to the school board about it. And what I got told was because if you look at every year, for example, your household, budgeting your household is not the same every single year. So some years it might take much more, some years it might take less. And also unfunded mandates is also an issue that I've been told, and redistricting is also another thing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Darren Post. I'm in the Ware Magisterial District. My question is for the Board of Supervisors candidates. I am a member of the Clean Community Committee here in Gloucester, and I wanted to know, in the next 4 years, what do you plan to do to help reduce the amount of littering in Gloucester County, and what do you plan to do to decrease or increase the recycling rate?
Mr. Bizzani, you will begin on this.
Thank you. That was a good question. Enforcement of the laws, to stop littering. It's hard to catch someone who throws litter in front of someone's place or in a ditch, or you go up and down Guinea Road, people are throwing trash. Even when we had early this spring, when we had a full cleanup effort, within 3 weeks, people were still throwing trash on the side of the roads. It's individual responsibility to understand whether or not you want to keep our roads and roadways clean. Not throwing trash in you have trash in your car, keep it in your car until you get home. Throw it in the trash can. It's a matter of individual responsibility. Secondly, the recycling. I recycle as much as I can. We collect all our aluminum cans and recycle them at the local metal recycler in York County, and sometimes at one here in Gloucester, depending on who pays us the best. It's always important. Thank you.
Thank you for this question. I believe it comes down to some education and awareness. The county can push that awareness at a low, minimal, nothing cost. Another good place to educate is within our schools and teach the next generation that personal responsibility of taking care of your environment, because there is a problem. We have those clean days, and there's a lot of volunteers that go out there and clean the ditches and pick up the trash that comes in from the tides. And then within weeks, it's right back to where it was. So that is a very good concern and a good issue to think forward on how we can solve that.
Well, I'm old enough to remember Lady Bird Johnson's, don't be a litter bug, keep America clean, and that kind of thing. And I know that if you're getting poised to toss something out the window, you got a hellacious racket from the back seat, that you were vermin if you did that. So I think from a cultural standpoint, this is something that could be brought up in school and pressed in school, and that the young people grow up being aware of littering and being aware that they can help control it. And you have the same kind of system for recycling. The more the kids understand, they pressure the parents more than the parents are subject to pressure from outside sources. We can do that, and I think also signs that mark that this no littering zone, if there's fines associated with it, would help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Dave King, Addington District. This is for the Board of Supervisors. What is the growth in dollars that the Board of Supervisors provided to the school division during the past 5 years, and how does budget growth correlate to the declining student population?
Mr. Farmer, will you begin with that, please?
I'm going to say that not currently on the board. I do not have factual answers to answer that question, so I'll have to defer.
Mr. Mayo, please.
And I wish I could give you a better answer than Mr. Farmer did. The school expenses have generally gone, operating funds now, generally been going up about $600,000 a year for the 4 years we've been on the board. A lot of this cost is for things that's a little bit beyond their control. For instance, we're covering over $2 million additional health care expenses for the schools that we didn't before. And we did give there was a 4% pay raise in 2016. What we are trying to do, and they have done successfully, I think, is examine their budget in great detail and gotten them to make a leaner operation so that other than those expenses, I think they've held costs down pretty good.
So over the last few months, before we did our budget earlier this spring, we have something called a chairs, vice chairs meeting. We would have one-on-one meetings with our superintendent of schools, and the chairman of the school board and the vice chairperson, and then of course the chair and vice chair of the board of supervisors. This is where we actually negotiated with the school board superintendent and the school board members. We actually negotiated with them their budget. It did not come as a surprise as to what they were going to receive. We constantly remind them that they have 7 elected officials. They receive lump sum funding from us. It's up to them to decide how they want to spend that money. If it's compensation, that's their responsibility. Compensation is not our responsibility for the school system. That's 7 elected officials do that. Compensation is handled by us here on the Board of Supervisors. So again, it's important that the public understands that once we provide monies to the schools, it's up to them to decide how they want to spend it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hedrick, I believe, yes.
I would like to ask this question, starting with the school board, but to all of you that are here. Does more pay for school teachers imply that other parts of the county government are less important?
Can you read it one more time?
Mr. Kelly?
Can you read it one more time? I'm sorry.
Does more pay for school teachers, we constantly hear that, at least I do, imply that other parts of the county government are less important? Should we go always to the teachers first?
I think that our teachers also, obviously do deserve a competitive pay when we competitively pay our employees, more specifically talking about teachers, make sure that we're paying them competitively compared to other school districts around the county. Now, I'm talking about York County or Williamsburg because they obviously have a lot more money than we have, but absolutely not. I think I think teachers get into it knowing what they're going to get, but they expect to be treated fair as well, and they expect to be paid competitively, and they deserve it 100%. And I would like to see we continue to work on competitive pay. Do I think that is the most important thing? I think it's ranks pretty important, but I think we can also prioritize our money in other ways as well.
Excuse me, I also believe that our teachers need to be compensated for the work that they do. Every day they get up and they go to school and they teach our children. I think we also need to make sure that they are competitive with our neighbors. Williamsburg and Yorktown, as you say, their budget, of course, is much higher. That's the other thing that we have to look at, too. If you're looking at Newport News, I mean, they have 8 to 9 schools. So from that competitive point, we can try to make sure that somewhere we make sure that we are making them competitive and making their life a little better.
I understood this was also for the Board of Supervisors members, so Mr. Meyer, would you please start?
Well, as you recognize, teachers are not paid the same as accountants, are not paid the same as sanitation engineers, are not paid the same as administrators, and we can get into an argument as to who's more important or not important, but they're all important to the operation of the county and operation of the schools. What drives the pay is what does it take you to recruit and retain the people in that skill set. And I think both the superintendent of schools and the county administrator are going through a review process right now to determine what the pay needs to be for these employees coming into the next year. One thing I'm not in favor of, you may end up with anyway, I'm not in favor of rising tide lifts all boats. I think we need to discriminate as to what skill sets we need and be willing to pay those the most.
So again, I refer to our chairs, vice chairs meeting where the county administrator and I and our vice chairman of the Board of Supervisors, we were able to somewhat shift the paradigm with the school system. Dr. Clemens listened to some of the ideas that we provided to them to take an internal look at their processes, to shuffle things around a little bit, look at their finances and see where they can provide the additional monies for, let's say, healthcare. A year ago, we had $750,000 bogey to pay for. We paid $250,000 of it. The schools were able to find $500,000 of it. It's because they were taking an introspective look at their budget. So again, it's a matter of working with the school system, working with the superintendent and the school board, and I think we've done that.
To answer your question, I would say no, but there's not a cookie cutter answer. Like Mr. Meyer says, all different kinds of jobs have different pay scales, and we need to make all of them competitive, and we need to give all of them somewhat of an upward mobility. The teachers aren't paid the same, again, as sanitation department. But the answer to your question is, no, we do not forget about the rest of the county and the other services within the county. They all need opportunities.
Thank you. Other questions?
Don Mitchell again, York District, 6072 Creekside Line. One of the candidates, a school board question, one of the candidates for school board has raised issues about a need for more diversity. Does that mean replacing current staff based on racial, ethnic, or gender identity quotas, or adding ethnicity, race, and gender identity to hiring criteria?
Ms. Mack?
When I look at diversity, no, diversity does not mean that we leave the teachers behind that are already there. They are there and they are permanent, and they need to be there. What I'm looking at in diversity is adding more teachers for diversity. You know, our county is very diverse, and I think every child always wants to be able to bond with a teacher that is their same color. It is a way for that child to be able to know that I can grow up and be whatever it is I want to be. But no, I do not want to get rid of teachers. I'm looking to add into budget to add more teachers.
I've talked to several people in the community, and I know that's one of the questions that have came up pretty frequently. And I want to say that diversity, I feel, is not a big issue in our school district. Our superintendent of Gloucester County Public Schools is African American. I've had principals that have been African American. I've had Asian teachers. Diversity is pretty well in our schools. We have pretty diversity. I don't think it's that big of an issue. Now, I know stated in the daily press release, I believe, in your newspaper ad, it said that there was only one African American teacher in Abington.
Well, there's two now.
Two, okay. I had looked on the website, and I believe that there were, I counted 8 or 9 African American teachers in Abington Elementary. So I don't feel like it's that big of an issue. No.
By affiliation, Ms. Mack, did you wish to make further comment?
Well, my granddaughter goes to Abington, and there are only 2 teachers, but they did acquire an assistant principal now who is African American. But when she first started there were no teachers of any ethnicity. So, and she was fine with it. But I think if you're looking at the different schools in this district, I feel that one.
Mr. Kelly?
Okay, I could say when I was talking to students in Gloucester County Public Schools, we're not focused on whether you are African American, whether you're white, whether you are Mexican. We'd rather have a teacher that is willing to make sure that we are exceeding the expectations that we are expected to do in our classrooms. I'm not worried about whether you're African American, white or not, or Mexican. I just want a teacher in the classroom that is willing to help us all to succeed. And I can say that, and that's it.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a Michelle Farmer, 8735 Zach Road in York District. I sort of have a horse in this race, but I also have a question. You talk about, or in regards to economic growth, the reason I moved to this county is because of its feeling of ruralness. How do you intend to maintain that feeling versus another Jefferson Avenue through Highway 17 to the supervisors?
Mr. Bazzani, you will begin.
So part of our vision for economic growth in Gloucester County does have to occur on Route 17. We do maintain the rurality of the left and right of 17. If you go east or west on 17, it's very rural, it's very farmland-like, it's very quiet, it's very suburban. But we have to have an economic center where you can do your business here in Gloucester County and not cross over the bridge and go over there and spend your hard-earned dollars across the bridge. So we are trying to, with what we did with the highway development overlay, we attempted and we are succeeding at bringing these businesses up and along 17. Now, we are working with VDOT. They are doing a traffic light study, much like they did in York County, where you can see that there's some certain sections of the county that smooths goes right through really quickly. They're doing the same thing for us. We just heard that last week from our regional director at VDOT. So that's going to alleviate the traffic problems, if that's your concern.
That's not the concern.
Well, I believe that the geography of this county is we have one corridor with a bunch of dead-end roads branching off of it. So therefore, there is only one corridor where most of the economic development, when you're talking commercial, is going to come. When you're dealing with the zoning of that commercial area, I think they did a very good job up near the courthouse with some trees in front of some of the businesses, and it gives it a cooler, less cement feel and less of a Jefferson Avenue or a Mercury Avenue feel. And I think as we bring development into the county, those are the kind of developments and redevelopments that we need to focus on to keep it a more green strip, even with a large amount of commercial business development.
And of course, what the county is going to look like in 2025 or 2030 is not a decision that we make now, but we try to strive towards a certain look. And as you go along, you're always adjusting the rheostat and seeing how you control it. The comprehensive plan calls for development to be in the courthouse district and down at the point and along Highway 17. The rest is supposed to stay rural. We're not going to see Jefferson Avenue unless we see an awful lot more money in the county in the near future. But if it looked like we were growing like that, I think the comprehensive plan would have to be adapted and start creating township nodes along 17 so that you do have green space in between those.
Thank you. Additional questions?
This is to both the school board and the board of supervisors. We've heard the term fully funded utilized by candidates, a number of candidates. I'd like to know what each of you means by fully funded and how you see getting the funds to fully fund. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, would you please begin?
Well, if I was elected to the school board, what I consider full funding is obviously we're not going to get what we want. And that's in any, whether it be city council, school board, board of supervisors, you're not going to get what you get. Now, what I consider full funding is making sure that we have the monies appropriated to do what we hope to do, making sure that we are continuing our CIP, making sure that is prioritizing our money, so making sure that we are getting the money that we need to use and right away, right fast. So I would way to get to make sure that we continue to get the money that we ask for is continuously working with the board of supervisors. And I think we need to prove to them that we're spending this money in a very good way. We're not wasting our money, and prove to them that we can handle our money.
Fully funded for me means that we have the money to do what is necessary. We don't want to waste money. We want to make sure that the fully funded money that we have goes where it's supposed to go and to be used appropriately.
Fully funded in the context that I understand my opponent to mean is if the supervisor asked for it, you fund it. And the only time he voted no to the supervisor budget was in 2016 when he didn't think the superintendent, when he didn't think the superintendent asked for enough. If we had paid what the superintendent asked for in the last 4 years, the school budget would be $7.7 million bigger than it is now, which would be paid for out of real estate tax. It would be 88 cent real estate tax by 69.5. But just to make it more personal, if we put it in your personal property tax and you had $25,000 worth of automobiles, you would need to stroke a check for $700 more each year.
Well, that's an excellent question as to what fully funded means. Again, fully funded means to provide the schools what they need. Growing up as a kid, I remember, my brother and I would go to a store and we'd tell our parents, hey, I want that. Or at least if that was a toy store or a candy store. I want that, I want that, and I want that. And our parents turned around and looked at us and said, okay, how are you going to pay for it? So it's a lesson that I carry forward when I'm on the board. You can't bias your decisions on just one entity of our county, the school system. You have 60% of the other part of the county that they have their hands out as well. So as a supervisor, you've got to balance all that. You can't just bias your funding levels to one entity and then deprive the others of their necessary needs to continue their functions to move forward. So again, it's a matter of equity and fairness.
I appreciate this question because when I first started to run my campaign, I came out and said fully funded, and it was probably the wrong wording to say. What I mean by that, and as I went around talking to people, and people posed that question to me many times, what I should have said was appropriately funded, and do the exact same thing. Make sure that we're spending the monies. We're putting a lot of money into that school district. Are we spending the monies in the right places? Are we doing the most good? Are we benefiting from that money? And that's what I should have said on my first brochure I put out. Fully funding, what I meant to say and what I mean today is appropriately funded. And that's what I appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions?
Brian Beeford from Abington District, 5544 Believe Hall Road. So I'm going to ask a question about water, of course. So my question is there future plans to expand the water lines into new areas? And is its main purpose to actually be a public service, or is it to be a revenue stream for the county? And then the other thing is, do you feel forced compliance is fair to all residents?
Mr. Farmer, you will begin this.
I don't know what the current Board of Supervisors' plan on utility of water is. I've lived in many different areas, and in some of the areas I have lived in, I truly believe the water service was a revenue-generating product. You were not getting what you were paying for, and you were paying absorbent fee. And I would not, if elected, want to see that or see it forced upon people who don't want it. I mean, a lot of this county probably will never receive for any length of time those services. And if people currently have wells and stuff and that service comes nearby, we should give them the opportunity to which service they want, in my views.
The strategic plan, utility strategic plan is, at least the initial version is due out in January. And we asked the utilities department to develop this because we were concerned about just those questions you asked. I would say that the business model that the county used in earlier years was they take millions of dollars of county tax money, borrow the money and pay back through county funds, and then expand the water and sewer system, and then say we're doing it because the more we expand the system, the lower the operating costs are. So you can reduce the individual cost at the tap. But we never recover the millions of dollars we spend in building the infrastructure. So we've asked for a very hard look on how we do this and what our plans are going future. And no, we should not do compulsory hookups.
So when the three of us came on board 4 years ago, again, we changed another paradigm. Another paradigm that says, don't expand something if you don't know how you're going to pay for it. So with the strategic directive we did with the Utilities Department, that's a cost-benefit analysis. It's important that if you're going to expand either utilities in terms of water or sewer, there has to be a cost-benefit analysis so that there's a zero-sum gain for the county and the citizen. I don't believe in compulsory hookup to water, but if you're going to expand sewer, it needs to be done in a way where you know who's going to hook up, what strategic locations within the county will be willing to hook up, and then go forward from there. We had, about 2 years ago, the Terrapin Cove folks wanted city water and sewer to go back there. So we sent them letters and said, hey, if you tell us that you want it and sign this form, it's a legal document, we'll expand it. Less than 50% said they didn't want it. So again, we wanted to do this cost-benefit analysis, which helped everybody in the county as far as our taxpayers.
Additional questions?
I wish I had another one for the school board, but I don't. One for the supervisors. Please explain how holding referendums to determine tax levels or policy would work. For example, would this conflict with the defined duties of the BOS, and how much would a referendum cost? Did you guys get that? Okay.
Okay, Mr. Meyer, you'll start with this.
How holding referendums on taxes would work? I don't know. To my knowledge, we haven't done that. We've been setting the taxes as a Board of Supervisors decision for as long as I've been here. And I think if you had a referendum, what you're really doing is asking if you put it out there for a vote, then you're bound to what the citizens determine on that referendum. We would, in the case of major investments involving bonds, we would go to the public and ask for a vote on the expenditure of those funds for the bonds.
So every time we have a major issue that comes up before the board, we have a public hearing on the issue. We encourage citizens to come up and say their piece as to what they think or not think about certain issues that we are working on. So it's important when you decide on certain major issues. I think you leave it up to the Board of Supervisors. If there's a major issue, as John had just mentioned, there's a major issue of critical concern. There could be an instance where we would hold a referendum, but I am not aware well, I'm not aware that we've done that in Gloucester County in the first place, but a referendum may be, you elect 7 of us to work for you, to represent your wishes, not ours. And so I hope that you trust us that we will make the right decisions for you. But if there's a critical need or a critical issue, I can see where a referendum might be required, but we've never done that in Gloucester County. People have trusted us the last 4 years.
I would have to agree, and this is why. I've lived in different areas around the country, and I was stationed in California for 10 years, and that is a referendum state, and this is a slippery slope, because you slowly, I mean, it's not uncommon in California to have 58 referendums on the ballot, all right, and it tends to, and they have competing referendums, and it usurps the democratic representative government that we have. And so I think we have to be very careful with referendums. If we were going to hold one, maybe like Mr. Meyer said, if it's a very, very important thing and we limit it to that, we might be open to that. But I've seen referendums go completely out of control, and I think it usurps the actual representative government that our forefathers set forth for us to use.
Thank you.
I would point out that Kevin Smith is an advocate for it.
Additional questions?
Dorothy Bayford, Abington District, 5544 Glebe Hall Road. At the previous forum, one of the candidates for the Board of Supervisors mentioned that waterfront property had gone up 200 to 300%. I just want to know if that's true, and if so, why?
Mr. Bazzani, you'll begin.
That's an excellent question. My opponent talked about draconian assessments. It's unfortunate that he didn't live longer than 3 years here in this county when we did in fact have draconian assessments back 5 to 10 years ago. They were horrible. A significant number of people were going to the Board of Zoning Appeals to try to get their assessments rechanged. Some of them were successful, some were not. But in this case, we changed all that. We hired a new county assessor that's done wonders here. In fact, waterfront properties, according to the assessor, only went up 0.7%, and non-waterfront properties only went up 2.7%. And as a matter of fact, when you look at the assessment statistically, we are in the 97th percentile as far as accuracy of assessments. So that meant that 3% were worse. So in my view, we did what we told the citizens to do. We hired an excellent assessor who's done an excellent job. We are very happy with what's going on, and I think we only had 11 complaints to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Well, I can't go back that many years within the county, but I can go on my personal taxes from the year that I bought till the very next year I paid taxes. They went up double, and that's because they changed the way they assessed. And that might be what the Board of Supervisors, they said they changed the way they assess waterfront property. And I know a lot of people, I've knocked on doors in the York District. I have done that. And I have talked to lots of people, and they've shown me their tax bills. And there were in 1 year, those taxes, because of the way they changed the assessment, and that's not, it did on a lot of waterfront properties. The smaller the property, the bigger the assessment went up. As a whole. I mean, and that's just, a quarter acre lot versus a 170 acre lot. There was a lot bigger percentage because they start the baseline at 200,000, where some of those properties weren't even assessed totally with all improvements at that much the year before.
John needs to go, or excuse me, Mr. Meyer needs to go first, and then Mr. Bazzani will have an opportunity to rebut.
Sure. Derek Green, who's our county assessor, has done a great job. When he stepped in, we had an abysmal assessment process, and they are all over the map, and they didn't correlate to actual sales or market values in the houses. And he brought in a very regimented system that is an award-winning system, and he's gotten state-level awards for this. And Mr. Bazzani quotes the 97% accuracy rate on the assessments. When that major reassessment was done, his first assessment after coming in, the total value of the real estate in the county really didn't change. So the averages all worked out. And if your assessment went up dramatically, it's not because you got overassessed this time around. The real cause of the problem was that you were underassessed previously. I almost hate to say it, you weren't here long enough to appreciate it, but those people who were in that situation should be thankful for the amount of money they didn't spend in the previous years.
Mr. Bazzani.
So I'm a trust but verify kind of guy. I looked at your property assessment. It went up 37%. You made improvements on your property. I think you lifted your home. You've done some other improvements to the house. You've done something to it, so it increased the assessment. All I'm saying is, if you improve your property, and I looked at your from 2014 to when you purchased to what it's worth today, that's a 37% increase. I don't know where the 200 to 300% came from.
There are people on my creek whose property value went up almost 200%. I've seen the bills. It is public domain. I have not lifted my house. I'm currently having a garage built. It's not even had the final inspection yet on it, so it has not yet been reassessed. And the biggest thing that we're missing on this, that I wasn't upset that the taxes went up. What I was upset with is when I talked to Mr. Bizzani on it. He says, how do you like these low taxes? And I said, they've increased dramatically. And he says, oh, you must be on the water. I do remember that.
Mr. Bizzani, do you have any follow-up?
No, I do remember that statement. Okay. I do remember that.
Thank you.
But again, when you look at the statistics, 0.7 of 1% increase. That's all you had as far as an increase from the assessor. I have to trust the assessor's numbers are correct. And non-waterfront folks are 2.7%. The reason why some properties might have gone up 200% is because the, as you call them, draconian assessments that were done 10 years ago, those properties were assessed really low. As a matter of fact, from where my mother-in-law lives, there was a fellow that lived across the street from us, had his house assessed until a new assessment at $500,000. When the new assessments came in, it went at 1.3 because the assessments were wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Bizzani. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Michael Sover Jr., live at 1810 Chisquiaca in the Gloucester Point District. This is actually for the Board of Supervisors and the school board. If we were to increase school funding, where would you see or envision the extra money coming from?
Mr. Farmer, you will start with this, please.
Well, what I look at is our tax base isn't changing dramatically in the last few years, and it's probably not going to change dramatically in the near future. But the number of students is declining, and we have spent a lot of money in the budget, or the school board has spent a lot of money in the budget for unfunded, fixing the HVAC and some other things. So there's going to be other money within that budget that currently stands to recapitalize that money to other avenues on follow-on years when those bills are paid.
I'm sorry, the question is where the money comes from?
Where would it come from? In terms of raising taxes, cutting somewhere else? What would...
We do have some school bills that are going to be coming up that are significant, both in terms of salary increase to stay competitive, and you may have noticed a lot of new capital projects that many of which will be started this year. So we'll need more revenue. All of our revenue projections have proven to be short. We're getting more money in the county than we anticipated. So tax revenue you can expect to be significantly higher without any changes of rate come the spring. And my goal is to match the revenue to what we need to spend on the services that we need to provide. So at the end, we have a shortfall in producing that revenue, then we'll raise taxes by the amount necessary to cover that.
Ms. Mack, would you like to respond to that?
As far as where the money's coming from, I believe that would be a negotiation between the Board of Supervisors and the school board. I do know there are some large projects that are going on right now, and I do know that money right now has already been slated for those. For instance, with the high school, the redoing of the high school, it needs a roof, need the HVAC. But I think all of those things now have already been budgeted in. So as far as what I think we need extra money for, I think that's something that is a discussion that needs to be done at a school board meeting and a Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Kelly?
I'll answer last.
I agree with Ms. Mack on that. I think it would be something that the Board of Supervisors and School Board would have to negotiate on I can tell you that when I attended the last work session that was held on the 19th of October, the unspent appropriation considerations in this unspent was $199,773, which we can reallocate for other uses within our school district. We do not want to see taxes raised in this county at all, and not many people want to. I talked to some people that wouldn't mind raising taxes, but I would do my hardest thing to not raise taxes in this county.
So, we got a report from our finance director in the county. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. She's bright, and I was instrumental in helping getting her into the county. But since July 1, we have grown our fund balance, which is excess money that's been collected in tax revenues that have not been assigned to any kind of expenditure. We've grown that by almost $1.1 million. That is money we will be able to use this fall for compensation for additional capital structure for both the county side and the school side. It's important to note that because we did this zero-based budget in the county for the first time, we were able to provide the schools $2.8 million worth of capital improvements, provide the school system with school teachers with 4 to 5% pay increases. And you know, we did all that in addition paying $300,000 to our fire and rescue and to our law enforcement. And we did that this year without raising taxes. For me, raising taxes is a last resort.
Additional questions?
Darren Post, Ware District. This is to the school board. Can you please explain tenure and whether you support it or not? It has seemed to become somewhat of a controversy now. How do you think it affects our school system, and do you support retaining it or abolishing it?
Ms. Mack, would you begin? Okay. She is deferring to Mr. Kelly.
I'm not too knowledgeable on that currently. I will take a look into it, and I don't want to comment on it just because I'm not informed on it, so we'll take a look at that. So when I do answer it to you, feel free to email me or email you so I make a knowledgeable response to you.
Tenure actually refers to the length of time that an employee has been at a certain job. As far as tenure is concerned, tenure means that that teacher or whoever that person is has been there a significant amount of years. And does that person then retain a certain economic base? Because tenure really expands that the longer you've been there, the more money you get. So I think at this point, I haven't heard anything in regard to tenure in the Gloucester Public Schools. So I would have to agree with Mr. Kelly that that would be something that would have to be looked into.
Thank you.
Have we answered everyone's questions?
Don Mitchell again, and I haven't moved, so I'm still in the York District at 6072 Creekside Lane. Question for both the school board and the supervisors. There seems to be a sort of a conflict ongoing in government between unlimited wants and limited resources. And I would like to know how each of you individually would resolve that conflict.
It's running pretty close, Mr. Mitchell, to what was asked, I think, previously, how we would fund things. But we'll go ahead, and Ms. Mack, would you please begin?
Would you repeat your question again? Because
Sure, it has to do with the conflict that exists in government as a whole, but also locally, between unlimited wants and limited resources. And how would you personally address and resolve that issue?
unlimited wants. I think when you're talking about unlimited wants and then what it really is, you would really have to prioritize that. There are some unlimited wants that are not necessary, and I think that's something that would need to be discussed. But I think it is a balance. It has to be a balance between the two. And that is something that is done in negotiating.
I think we remember answering this question at the first candidate forum. So there will always be unlimited wants from anybody. We're always going to want something that we cannot get. But we have to work with the money that we are receiving and prioritize our money, for example, making sure that we're prioritizing things correctly in the CIP plan. But there will always be unlimited wants. Whether or not you're going to get what you want is another whole story. You won't. But when you talk about unlimited resources, you have to work with what you have to, work with what you have, and do the best you can with what you get.
I don't know if you can ever resolve unlimited wants and limited resources. What the most important thing to do is, not go into debt, not raise taxes to the point where people can't function within the society. So that means you have to actually roll up your sleeve, figure out what your priorities are, and then everything else falls in order, and you don't fund some stuff. To fully what is wanted to be funded. That's going to be an ongoing issue for time on end.
Okay, obviously unlimited wants is untenable. What your goal is to drive those unlimited wants down to absolute needs. And you do that by scouring everything thoroughly, zero-based budgeting. The tools are available to do that. I think philosophically it's important to understand that my goal is always to reduce spending to the minimum necessary to get the county to function. Running lean is a good way for a government to run. Just like you don't want to feed a track star all they want to eat because they'll get too fat to run fast. By the same token, you don't want to starve them. So you got to feed the system the right amount. So we're going to reduce it to the absolute needs, and then you fund what you need to meet those needs.
So basically it comes down to funding what you can afford. I can give a good example of what happened in Cosen. Cosen is resident rich, business poor. They have 12,000 people in their city, 12,000. We have 38,000. Our tax rate is 69.5 cents. In Cosen, where they're resident rich and business poor, their tax rate's $1.09. Now, I can't wrap my head around that. Those numbers kind of bother me a little bit, but it's a result of the schools having wants and the city council giving them what they wanted, and as a result of that, the tax rate is much higher than what they anticipated. So I agree with Mr. Meyer. You can't fund wants. You fund what you need. This year, we gave the schools what they needed. We negotiated with them, and they agreed to it, shook our hands, and we walked away and got the rest of us to vote for a budget that helped the schools out. Included compensation, included capital improvements, and so on.
Thank you. Mr. Bayford.
Hi, Brian Beeford, Hampton District, Glebe Hall Road. My question is about the former Page School property. What are the plans for that property? And to include school board candidates, should that property funds, if that property is sold, should it be spearheaded towards the school? Because that's what it formerly was, a school.
Mr. Meyer, you'll begin this round.
Yes, the intent is to eventually turn over the old Page site to the county. And the way you do that is you eliminate the need of the school system for the property. So the two things that have to occur on that is to move the baseball field off the old Page site and to move the transportation facility from the old Page site. At that point, the plan is at this point for the property to be deeded to the county upon the completion of that. What the county intends to do with that land is make it available for economic development, leaning towards this light industry, exporting businesses that we were talking about earlier.
So Mr. Meyer stole my thunder there, but that's exactly what we want with that property. We want to be able to provide economic development product, as they call it in the Economic Development Authority terms. Product available for businesses to come in, to settle there, do their business, pay taxes to the county, and alleviate the burden on the taxpayer. It's important that this kind of thing happens for economic development, to bring businesses in here. As I said about Pocosin, resident rich, business poor. So we are interested in getting that property available for economic development. And in return for that, as Mr. Meyer indicated, we are going to build a transportation facility. Now, I have some issues with respect to the cost. I think that the transportation facility is probably costing more than what it should, and I'm going to try to work as hard as I can to see what we can do to reduce those costs. But again, that's the trade-off that we're going to make with the schools, and we've come up with an agreement. I don't know what the status of that is yet. We've come up with the numbers, and that's the way it is.
Well, being that I don't currently sit on the board, and a lot of these decisions have been made, and I would agree that moving, their plan is to move the transportation over behind the current Page School and a baseball field. And then I do believe that that is prime real estate that the county can use to draw economic. There's a stoplight in the area. It's already a cleared area. There's a water tower, and I believe that that is a prime area that we could use to bring economic development to this county.
Well, I can tell you by attending work sessions with the school board that the decisions, joint session, I think everything's starting to roll between the current boards, and they already have things pretty set in stone. If I was elected, I'm pretty sure things had already on the roll by then. Understand that the CIP plan that the school has currently on the school board, the baseball field is ranked number 5. I would like to see that possibly ranked a little faster so we can get things going with the baseball field, so we can give this property over to this Board of Supervisors a little faster. I'm okay with us giving away the property as long as it's written down in the statement somewhere saying, hey, as long as our kids are allowed to use this property, play baseball on it until we get a new one built, I'm fine with that. But I think it's a perfect property for economic development and to boost our economy in that area by bringing in some people, bring some revenue.
As was stated, I think that property has already been slated for what wants to be done. I think they did a good job, the Board of Supervisors and the school board, on making the recommendations for that land. I also agree that once the land is deeded back over to the county, then that is a good spot. Like I said, there is a stoplight there, and it is a viable place for good economic growth.
If I may add on to that for the supervisors, we have a industrial park right next to that now, and that park also has empty lots that have been empty for almost 20 years. What will we do different that will actually make use of that property for economic development that's not happening now?
Mr. Pisani.
Yes. So what we've done over the last 4 years we were able to reduce stifling ordinances that prevented businesses from coming in. Sorry. What we've done in the last 4 years is to reduce ordinances and simplify them so we can bring businesses in here. It's going to take time to fill out the business park. We have one entity that may come. I can't talk about that, but there is one entity that's coming in. They may want to possibly expand beyond the business park. But the business park, we have a new economic development authority person, Sherry Spring, who's done a wonderful job of bringing the businesses you see. If you look around Gloucester, you'll see the results of her effort and the results of our effort in reducing and simplifying ordinances. And so the business park will transform. It will take time. We are a slow-growing county. We're not bustling like some of the others outside across the Coleman Bridge, but maybe we get some reduction in the tolls. That might help bring some people in here. So again, we'll see that happen.
Your question was, what's the difference between that piece of property and the current?
My concern is really that that property has had empty lots in it, in the current industrial park now for well over 15 years that I've lived right behind it. And what will we do different that would actually bring businesses to that park that we've not done in the past?
Well, I think that the transportation issue, if you get the right industry, that stoplight and right on the 17 corridor probably gives it a little better, a little more of a spark to bring someone here than in the industrial park. Although the industrial park, we need to push in economic, and I do believe that the new person running the economic development is doing a great job. But when you're right on the corridor, that's a little different than being into the business park. So maybe we can even bring a better business or a better light industry into the county with that spot.
Two key things on this. One is what it offers is a larger chunk of land than we made available before. And because the land exceeds a certain size, now the state of Virginia will market that piece of property in the state's external marketing to bring customers in. Whereas right now, no property in Gloucester is advertised by the state. Second, the business climate's important. Since this year started, over 125 new businesses have begun in Gloucester County, 24 of them brick and mortar businesses. And as you go up down Main Street, Fox Bell, down to Gloucester Point, what you see are new businesses springing up that 4 years ago would not have happened. And we do have a potential customer for the last bit of land in the existing industrial park. So I think the timing is about right.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you. It is now time to conclude with the open forum for the audience. And we will go right into closing statements. And we will begin with Ms. Mack. And come down this direction, please.
Well, this has been a good evening. We want to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to ask their questions. And we hope that some of the responses that you got help alleviated some of your fears, some of your anxieties, and have given you a good insight into what we want to do. I think for me, I want to be able to be there to be able to represent you because you are what's important. So we want to make sure that we follow and look and listen to what your needs and what your wants are. Like I said, we can't have everything we want, but we definitely want to make sure that we can negotiate for the things that we need.
Well, this time I'm not going to try to read off bullet points because that didn't work the first time in my opening statement. So I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out here tonight. I want to thank everyone who organized this event for the public this afternoon and for us, the candidates seeking the seat of Board of Supervisors and School Board. I just want to let you know, if I am elected, I am committed to protecting your taxpayers' dollars and being transparent with them, fighting to bring back our career technical education classes, also commonly known as vocational classes, in our high schools and middle schools, continuing to make sure that our students are thriving in that, not just continuing to be pushed into passing multiple question tests. I want to continue to bridge the gap between our Board of Supervisors and our school board, continuing to promote parent and community involvement within our school district. And when you head out to vote in 14 days, I can't believe it's been a half of a year since I announced my candidacy, but 14 days, each and every one of you will head to the ballots and choose what kind of school board you want, or school board at-large member you want to represent you. Vote for someone that has attended the school district and understands firsthand what our students and our teachers and support staff are facing. Someone that is willing to work with the community, work with the Board of Supervisors to make sure that every child in our school district, every child is receiving a high-quality education, no matter your religion, your ethnicity, or your religion, race, color, just making sure that every child is succeeding. One thing I am glad is that I'm not endorsed by any political parties or groups, because in the state of Virginia, school boards are nonpartisan, but I am gladly endorsed and proudly endorsed by the Gloucester County Education Association. I just received an endorsement yesterday from them, and I am the only candidate seeking the at-large office that is endorsed by them. She is endorsed by the Democratic Party. I will not accept any the next 14 days because, again, we are a nonpartisan group, and I also want to look forward to working with the Gloucester County Sheriff's Office and bridging our gap, possibly putting some school resource officers in our middle schools, our elementary schools as well. Thank you and have a great night. God bless you and God bless America.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. It's been quite enjoyable and informative forum. I've been, like I said, win or lose this election. I just want to tell everyone here that in the last 6 months, I have traveled down roads, if I hadn't ran for this office, that I could live here for 20 years and never go down. And I have had conversations with people that I would have probably never met living here for 20 or 30 years. And it has been an unbelievable experience. And I would be totally willing to talk to anyone after the forum or any day after. I look forward to talking to people, for or against me. I think it's important for our democracy to do these kinds of things, and we can disagree but not be disagreeable. And I think that's an important lesson that this country needs to see, especially at this time. And I hope to get your support, but if not, I would encourage every person to vote and to go out and tell every person they know to vote, because we do not have a democracy if we do not vote. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank the Gloucester Citizens for Accountable Government for sponsoring this tonight. You've just interviewed us. You've just reviewed our qualifications. I reviewed mine with you. You've asked the right questions. This is the kind of thing that you do when you interview someone who wants to work for you. And the decision you have to make is, who's the best qualified person? Who can best represent you on the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors? I think I'm the best person that could represent you on the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors. I want 4 more years to move Gloucester County in a forward direction, much like we've done in the last 4 years. And so I'm asking you to consider my qualifications, consider mine against my opponent's qualifications, and then decide for yourself who would be best qualified to do this job. There's some campaign materials back there that has a resume of myself in comparison to my opponents. I encourage you to read that. It's informative, but again, you decide who you want to hold this office, and I'm hoping that you'll decide that it will be me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for coming tonight and participating. You know, running a county this large is not an easy job. It's a $110 million budget, and you've got, between the schools and the county, 1,100 employees that you have to take care of. In addition, there's 38,000 citizens/customers who are seeking better services, better security, and more opportunities. So I was a senior leader in the military and in the commercial world, and had as a routine basis difficult policy decisions to make. I can tell you that those decisions weren't any easier than the ones that you face on a monthly basis here in the county. In order to do this job right, you need to have management expertise, you need to have financial expertise, you need to have leadership. I have demonstrated those qualities in my past careers, and I believe I've demonstrated them over the last 4 years. This is an important job. It's a job too important to put in the hands of untested candidates. I urge you to keep the county government in steady hands, the hands of those who have been there, done that, and done that well.
Thank you. Dave King is going to say a few words, and while he's getting up here, I just want to say thank you to these candidates. You all have done an exceptional job tonight, and I appreciate your participation. I know that your citizens appreciate your participation. And I again encourage you to vote on November 7th, and I am grateful that I was able to be your moderator.
Thank all of you for coming, and I think we're going to have a few minutes now where all of you that are here will be able to know and meet the candidates personally if you want to. And especially want to thank Trudy for sitting in here and being the moderator. And again, do go vote, but stay around for a few minutes and meet the candidates. And I'd like to extend a special thanks to the members of our Concerned Citizens Committee, and especially Don for working as hard as he did to get this thing together. So thank you, and get out and vote.